Namaste, Dandavat Pranam. By the instruction and grace of our spiritual master Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa, Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj, we are here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're also paying our humble Dandavat Pranam to Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada for providing us this wonderful commentary and translation of Bhagavatam. And by the instruction and guidance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, we are praying to Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati has told us that unless we can understand something about Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī within our reading of Bhagavatam, then our study has been for waste. Yadi sevā-vañcitāḥ yasyāḥ kṛpayā vayaṃ labhema sarvaṃ prāpnumaḥ prayojanaṃ dhāmni śrī-bhagavat pade Kṛṣṇa-sambandhi sarvaṃ Yadi na jānīmahe tutam Aṣṭādaśasu sahasreṣu ślokānāṃ bhāgavat-oktiṣu Radharanim na vindamattada nishphalam bhagavat-yayinam radhikaya kripam vina vyartasyat sarva-pariśramaḥ. If we are cheated out of serving that personality whose mercy awards us everything we need, including residence in the Lord's holy dham and all things connected to Krishna, and if we cannot understand or discover Radharani within 18,000 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, then our study of Srimad Bhagavatam has been pointless. Without the mercy of Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī, all our efforts are in vain. So we are continuing our reading of Srimad Bhagavatam this morning from Canto 5. Chapter 13, Text 9. Kvachinnir nigirno jagaharhino jano Navaiti kinchid vipine pavidhaha dashtasmasete kvacha dandashukar andhonda kupe patitas tamir shre. The conditioned soul in the material forest is sometimes swallowed by a python or crushed. At such a time, he is left lying in the forest like a dead person, devoid of consciousness and knowledge. Sometimes other poisonous snakes bite him. Being blind to his consciousness, he falls down into a dark well of hellish life with no hope of being rescued. Purport. When one becomes unconscious due to being bitten by a snake, one cannot understand what is taking place outside the body. This unconscious condition is the condition of deep sleep. Similarly, the conditioned soul is actually sleeping on the lap of the illusory energy. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has sung, Kota Nidra Yao Maya Pisa Chira Kole. O living entity, how long will you sleep in this condition on the lap of the illusory energy? People do not understand that they are actually sleeping in this material world, being devoid of knowledge of spiritual life. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore says, Enechi asodhi maya nasi bara lagi harinama maha mantra lao tumi magi. I have brought medicine to awaken every living being from perpetual sleep. Please receive the holy name of the Lord, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and awaken. The Katha Upanishad 1.3.14 also says, Utista jagrata prapya varani bodhata O living entity, you are sleeping in this material world. Please get up and take advantage of your human form of life. The sleeping condition means loss of all knowledge. In Bhagavad Gita 2.69, it is also said, Yanisha sarva-bhutanam tasyam jagarti samyami. What is night for all living beings is the time of awakening for the self-controlled. Even in the higher planets, everyone is under the spell of the illusory energy. No one is really interested in the real values of life. The sleeping condition called kala sarpa, the time factor, keeps the conditioned soul in a state of ignorance, and therefore pure consciousness is lost. In the forest there are many blind wells, and if one falls down in one, there is no chance of being rescued. In a state of sleep, one remains perpetually bitten by some animals, especially snakes. Text 10. Karhismachit shudra rasan vichinvams tanmakshakabir vyatito vimana tadrati kritrat pratilabdamano balad vilum pantyata tam tatonye. Sometimes, in order to have a little insignificant sex enjoyment, one searches after debauched women. In this attempt, one is insulted and chastised by the women's kinsmen. This is like going to take honey from a beehive and being attacked by the bees. Sometimes, after spending lots of money, one may acquire another woman for some extra sense enjoyment. Unfortunately, the object of sense enjoyment, the woman, is taken away or kidnapped by another debauchee. Dhanavad pranam Tulsi Maharani Devi Das. Pranam Shivam Ji. Purport. In a great forest, honeycombs are very important. People often go there to collect honey from the combs, and sometimes the bees attack and punish them. In human society, those who are not Krishna conscious remain in the forest of material life simply for the honey of sex life. Such debauchees are not at all satisfied with one wife. They want many women. Day after day, with great difficulty, they try to secure such women, and sometimes while trying to taste this kind of honey, one is attacked by a woman's kinsman and chastised very heavily. By bribing others, one may secure another woman for enjoyment, yet another debauchee may kidnap her or offer her something better. This woman hunting is going on in the forest of the material world, sometimes legally and sometimes illegally. Consequently, in this Krishna consciousness movement, the devotees are forbidden to have illicit sex. Thus they avoid so many difficulties. One should remain satisfied with one woman, being duly married. One can satisfy one's lusty desires with his wife without creating disturbances in society and being punished for doing so. Text 11. Kvachicha sita tapavata varsha pratikriyam kartum anisha aste kvachin mito vipanan yachcha kinchid vidvesham richatyuta vitta satyat. Sometimes the living entity is busy counteracting the natural disturbances of freezing cold, scorching heat, strong wind, excessive rainfall, and so forth. When he is unable to do so, he becomes very unhappy. Sometimes he is cheated in business transactions one after another. In this way, by cheating, living entities create enmity amongst themselves. Purport. This is an example of the struggle for existence, an attempt to counteract the onslaught of material nature. This creates enmity in society, and consequently, society is filled with envious people. One person is envious of another, and this is the way of the material world. The Krishna consciousness movement aims at creating an atmosphere of non-envy. Of course, it is not possible for everyone to become Krishna conscious, but the Krishna consciousness movement can create an exemplary society wherein there is no envy. Text 12. Kvachit kṣina danastu tasmin sayasanastana viharahina yachan parad aprati labdakama parakya drishtir labate vamanam. On the forest path of material existence, sometimes a person is without wealth, and due to this does not have a proper home, bed, or sitting place, nor proper family enjoyment. He therefore goes to beg money from others, but when his desires are not fulfilled by begging, he wants to borrow or steal the property of others. Thus he is insulted in society. Purport. The principles of beg, borrow, or steal are very appropriate in this material world. When one is in want, he begs, borrows, or steals. If begging is unsuccessful, he borrows. If he cannot pay, he steals. And when he is caught, he is insulted. This is the law of material existence. No one can live here very honestly. Therefore, by trickery, cheating, begging, borrowing, or stealing, one tries to satisfy his senses. Thus, no one in this material world is living peacefully. Text 13. Anyonya vitta vyati sangha vridha varanu bando vivahan mitascha advanyamusmin uru kritravitta badho pasargar viharan vipana. Due to monetary transactions, relationships become very strained and end in enmity. Sometimes the husband and wife walk on the path of material progress, and to maintain their relationship they work very hard. Sometimes due to scarcity of money or due to diseased conditions, they are embarrassed and almost die. Purport. In this material world there are many transactions between peoples and societies, as well as between nations, but gradually these end in enmity between the two parties. Similarly, in the marriage relationship, monetary transactions are sometimes overpowered by the dangerous conditions of material life. One then becomes diseased or monetarily embarrassed. In the modern age, most countries have developed economically, but due to business exchanges, relationships seem to be strained. Finally, wars are declared between nations, and as a result of these upheavals, there is destruction all over the world and people suffer heavily. Text 14. Tamstan vipanan sahi tatra tatra vihaya jatam parigriya sartha avartate jyapi na kischiratra viradvaha param upaiti yogam. My dear king, on the forest path of material life, first a person is bereft of his father and mother, and after their death he becomes attached to his newly born children. In this way he wanders on the path of material progress and is eventually embarrassed. Nonetheless, no one knows how to get out of this, even up to the moment of death. Purport. In this material world, family life is an institution of sex. Yan matunadi grihamedi shukam. Bhagavatam 5.13.9. Through sex, the father and mother beget children, and the children get married and go down the same path of sexual life. After the death of the father and mother, the children get married and beget their own children. Thus, generation after generation, these things go on in the same way without anyone's attaining liberation from the embarrassment of material life. No one accepts the spiritual processes of knowledge and renunciation, which end in bhakti yoga. Actually, human life is meant for jnana and vairagya, knowledge and renunciation. Through these, one can attain the platform of devotional service. Unfortunately, people in this age avoid the association of liberated people, sadhu sangha, and continue in their stereotyped way of family life. Thus, they are embarrassed by the exchange of money and sex. Text 15. Manasvino nirjita diggajendra mameti sarve bhuvi bhadavara mridhe sayirana tu tadvrajanti yanyastadando gata vairobhiyati. There were and are many political and social heroes who have conquered enemies of equal power. Yet due to their ignorance in believing that the land is theirs, they fight one another and lay down their lives in battle. They are not able to take up the spiritual path accepted by those in the renounced order. Although they are big heroes and political leaders, they cannot take to the path of spiritual realization. Purport. Big political leaders might be able to conquer equally powerful political enemies, but unfortunately they cannot subdue their strong senses, the enemies that always accompany them. Not being able to conquer these nearby enemies, they simply try to conquer other enemies, and ultimately they die in the struggle for existence. They do not take to the path of spiritual realization or become sannyasis. Sometimes these big leaders take up the guise of a sannyasi and call themselves mahatmas, but their only business is conquering their political enemies. Because they spoil their lives with the illusion of this is my land and my family, they cannot progress spiritually and attain liberation from the clutches of Maya. Text 16. Prasajati kvapi lata bujashrayas tad ashraya vyakta padadvijasvara kvachit kadachit dari chakratrasan sakyam virhate baka kanka gridrar. Sometimes a living entity in the forest of material existence takes shelter of creepers and desires to hear the chirping of the birds in those creepers. Being afraid of the roaring lions in the forest, he makes friends with cranes, herons, and vultures. Purport. In the forest of the material world, there are many animals and birds, trees, and creepers. Sometimes the living entity wants to take shelter of the creepers. In other words, he wants to be happy by being embraced by the creeper-like arms of his wife. Within the creepers, there are many chirping birds, and this indicates that he wants to satisfy himself by hearing the sweet voice of his wife. In old age, however, he is sometimes afraid of imminent death, which is compared to a roaring lion. To save himself from the lion's attack, he takes shelter of some bogus swamis, yogis, incarnations, pretenders, and cheaters. Being misled by the illusory energy in this way, he spoils his life. It is said, Harim vinam ritim na taranti. No one can be saved from the imminent danger of death without taking shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The word Hari indicates the lion as well as the Supreme Lord. To be saved from the hands of Hari, the lion of death, one must take shelter of the Supreme Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. People with a poor fund of knowledge take shelter of non-devotee cheaters and pretenders in order to be saved from the clutches of death. In the forest of the material world, the living entity first of all wants to be very happy by taking shelter of the creeper-like arms of his wife and hearing her sweet voice. Later, he sometimes takes shelter of so-called gurus and sadhus, who are like crane, herons, and vultures. He is cheated both ways and is not taking shelter of the Supreme Lord. And thus ends our reading for today. We'll continue from text 17 on Wednesday. Before we conclude, were there any comments or questions or anything to share from the assembled devotees?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Shiva.
Prabhuji, in the earlier verse it was said how the snake of material world, something compared to deep sleep state. And it was said like in the sleep we are wasting our life basically. But like if we don't sleep, then we get the physical body can't work.
He wasn't speaking of physiological sleeping at night. Srila Prabhupada said that sleeping means a lack of knowledge and being awake means having spiritual knowledge. So he didn't mean like not to sleep at night. He was talking about not to sleep on life, on spiritual life. Don't remain asleep and not inquire into spiritual life and take up spiritual practice. That's what he meant by asleep.
Also, Prabhuji, it is said that the senior devotees or the senior Vaishnavas, even in their sleep, they can have remembrance of the Supreme Lord and how is that possible?
Everything is for the service of Krishna. So when a devotee goes to sleep at night, again, we're not talking about the kind of sleep Prabhupada was mentioning in that verse, but for the kind of sleep at night for our body, that's also service. They're thinking of Krishna. Practitioners are thinking of Krishna. Oh, I really need to have a lot of enthusiasm when I wake up. I love doing my service. I'm very excited to do my service. And in order to wake up with enthusiasm and do it with proper attention, I need to get sufficient sleep so that my body is not lethargic or slow or dull. I'm going to sleep right now so that my body will be fit for service in the morning. And in that way, we're remembering Krishna even when we sleep. As far as very high devotees who, can enter other planes of dreaming consciousness, I'm not so sure about that. But nonetheless, all practitioners can think of Krishna when they sleep by thinking in the way that I described. We need to sleep so that we have lots of energy for our seva in the morning, and in that way our sleep is service.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Shripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, Srila Acharya Dev, Srila Tirtha Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai. Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai.
Jai.
Assembled devotees, all glories to the worldwide devotees, Sama Bhaktiveda Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Navadvip Dham ki jai, Mayapur Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ju ki jai, Ganga Mai Yamuna Mai ki jai, Vrindavan jai, Giri Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham ki jai, Shri Ram Kund Radha Kund ki jai, Vasu Devi Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi ki jai, Jai Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki jai, Kristin Bhaktivedanta Institute ki jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Bol, Jai Śrīmatī Uma Devi Dasi ki jai, Śrīmatī Tulsi Maharani Devi Dasi ki jai, Shivam ji ki jai, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna and Krishna Keshava Das ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Jai Guru
Hare
Dev.
Krishna.
Dhanavad.